We got a great episode today, episode 46. It seems like every so often we're chipping away at them. Today's
Chipping away.
episode 46. Suggestions is stuff. Robbie,
Suggestions
tell us a little
is
bit about that.
man, suggestions is stuff, man. What that simply means, what I'm getting at here is that we live in a time of intense noise. Man, that's stuff and things being suggested at us daily. And it's just driving, man. If you don't watch yourself, it can drive you generally lightly insane, man. So much stuff is coming out, coming up. People are just listening to all kind of things. And those things are suggestions, and they're affecting everything that we used to believe, think about ourselves, everything we used to believe, think about our countries. And so when you deal with stuff and then get bombarded with a lot of stuff can cause confusion. And I believe that there's a lot of confusion in the world. And so today we're not speaking on anything topically as experts, but we're talking about stuff so that you can think about the stuff that's happening in your life right now and decide what you're going to do with that stuff, how you going to unwind, how you going to untether, how you going to get unhinged from it. Because if you follow everything, every piece of stuff that's out there right now, you're going to get lost. Amen. And that's a definite. So stuff is very powerful, right? And so to give you an idea about some of the stuff, right now we're looking at an economic coup over currency. That's stuff. You got some big world powers. You got China, you got Russia, you got Iran, you got Saudi Arabia, and you got African countries jumping in, and they're putting together an economic coup over currency. This is going down this weekend, whether you know what to do with your money or not. That's stuff. And that's going to impact people. That's just going to create new wealth barons in the world. Are you going to be a part of that mix or not? Stuff. You think about stuff. There's an economic coup on war right now. Some of the same players we just finished talking about lining up and adjusting themselves. You don't think America's just going to sit down and allow for economic coup on money when we've been the money baron for about 100 years and not go into war over that as an excuse just so we can redistribute wealth. Come on, guys. That's
Right.
stuff and that's noise. And one other thing, I'll let you jump in there, George. The other one, just to throw some things out there, we have an economic coup on religion. It's stuff. Man, everybody's coming up with newfound ideas about religion, what's real, what's not. Is it black? Is it white? Is it this? Is it that? And inside of that, a sub area of coup, and this economic also is who is a person biologically. And I'm not messing with anybody. I'm putting it out there because it's noise and it's stuff. And so now people are identifying and wanting to change their biology just by words of identification and all that goes along with that. And it's all creating a lot of noise and a lot of stuff. And so I want to make sure you understand me when I'm saying what I just said. I'm not judging any part of that. I'm trying to tell you, though, for a fact, it's noise and it's stuff. And it's a platform and it's causing a whole lot of separation and disjointedness and noise, and things are happening in people, man. And while we're listening to all this noise, other things are happening under the rug, as it were, economically for us, with our money, with our finances, even with our faith. This stuff right here, man, suggestions is stuff. And guess what? Who is the king of suggestions? Satan or Satan. King of suggestions, come up with any and every idea when your spirit gets open to all that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Anything that comes along once you open yourself up, anybody and anything can be suggested, and that stuff can take root in your opening, and then you got a challenge. Go ahead, hit it up, hit it up, hit it up, hit it up.
Yeah, it's just if you have no moral boundaries, your morals are gonna have a lot of leeway, right? If you never stand your ground, if you never have your own opinion, if you never lock into, your own intuition in that regard of what I believe has been intertwined with us by the creating force of the universe, then you just kind of are in this spiritual, physical um, waywardness in terms of you just go with the wind. You do whatever the crowd's doing,
Whatever the wind blows.
wherever the wind blows. And it really doesn't matter what religion you follow, but definitely, and everyone seems like there's a theme of not going with the crowd, not following the masses, like being holy, and which means to set apart
Set
from,
apart.
to be separated, to have your own brain, to have your own thoughts, feelings, emotions. And it's really interesting. I'm part of a book club right now, and we're reading this book that's called Predictably Irrational.
Hmm.
Um, and the idea that to some extent is like, how does our decision making process boil down is like, so one of the chapters, for example, is about how the word free affects people. And they do an
Mm.
experiment where they sell chocolates. One's 15 cents and one's 1 cent. When you have to pay for each one, people have more of an equal distribution. It's like, I think it's a truffle is the 15 cent, or the 1 cent is just a Hershey's Kiss. So a majority of people chose the truffle. It was like 60% versus the Hershey's Kiss because, oh, I can get a truffle just for 15 cents, right? Whereas, and then they ran that experiment as like 60-40 or 70-30-ish, 70 in favor of the truffle. And then they did the experiment again instead. They decreased the price of the truffle to 14 cents, and then they decreased the price of the Hershey's Kiss, to 0 cents. So it's free. So, and then you'd be surprised. Like you'd say, oh no, people would recognize that it's only a 14-cent truffle, same deal as the 15-cent truffle. And then it was like, no, with that, a majority of the people is like flip flop. It was like 70 in favor of the Hershey's Kiss. I think it was even up to 85 to
Suggestions.
15. So it's like how understanding how language affects us, understanding how other people's thoughts and actions and opinions affect us. Like there was another one where there was a group of people at a dinner table, and they did a study on like how people choose their order based on what has already been ordered, and how satisfied people were with their order based on which place they made the order. So if you made the order first and you had no prior influence, so it'd be like if you and I were there, and let's say your wife and I had a friend there at dinner, and I ordered first. So on average, the person that ordered first, say I ordered like the salmon and rice and green beans or whatever, enjoyed their meal more than the second person that ordered, the third person that ordered, or the fourth person that ordered, because then they modified their order based on what the other person or previous orders have been. And because they say, oh no, that sounds good, I'm going to get that. Versus, oh, I don't like salmon, so I'm going to get the filet, or I don't like
Exactly.
salmon, so I'm gonna get this.
Exactly.
And it was just really interesting because like I felt myself kind of combating that book the whole time. Like, no, I don't do that. Well, and in some cases I probably do, but I think in a lot of cases we are talking about it that the way I make decisions seemingly or try to and strive to is to not let um, external factors make my ultimate decision. Like I'm always going to take in information, read studies,
Right. Right.
I'm pretty like in tune with health and wellness and everything. So I always do that and take in advice, but ultimately I'm going to go with my like intuitive nature and compare it in light of what I know about everything else that I've learned.
Or what you built yourself into being, right? Smart people learn from smart people, right? And so
Right.
as a smart person, you're reading, you're studying, you're looking at these different types of examples of different things, and it's shaping a lot of who you are, your morality, your values. It's shaping a lot of how you're going to decide should you be placed in a particular scenario. But as you're growing, like I was sending to my buddy today, was thinking about his kids, his twins, and I love them. And I was just sending them some pictures. And in sending those pictures, I was also suggesting how champions are born, right? And so my sons, I train my sons. I train them with martial arts. I train them, with sports, football, etc. And I cross
Hmm.
train them along the ways with that. And so in cross training them is to help them understand that one form of training is not the end all, but if you
Right.
combine different forms of training, then you work all these different muscle groups so that when it comes time for peak performance, you can have peak performance. And my sons excel. And so I was sending them pictures of my martial arts son, and how he, when he was doing one of his katas, he did 3 steps and he jumped, and the explosion from his jump, had a still shot of how high he was in the air, and he literally cleared the table of his
Wow.
3 examiners. He just had incredible, God bless, springs, but a
Maybe.
lot of
Yeah.
training, a lot of power, a lot of development came along with that. So in studying the body, studying how the body moves, what creates explosion, how do you make that muscle memory? So when he needs to take off and do what he needs to do, the decision's already pretty much made because it's already in his body. His body's already trained for that, and his mind's already geared for it, and it's hot wired, boom, to perform on call, on cue.
Hmm.
And when I say suggestions is noise, I think the reason why I'm getting that suggestions is noise, we haven't built any on cue anything for the
Hmm.
last 20, 25 years in America. Education has been just teaching us how to follow the law,
Yeah, it's
the
just
logjam, and
what can we do to pass people along to the
pass
next
them along.
stage,
We're
not
not
to
teaching
thrive.
people how to think anymore. It's
No.
We're not teaching people how to think. We're teaching people how to process. Critical thinking is a skill set that everybody should endeavor to learn more about, learn how
Yeah.
to solve, but we just process. And so if we're just in a process society, we don't understand how things really work, how to get them to work, then you're right. Again, that goes right to the topic, suggestions. If you order salmon, somebody else looks at that, they may not enjoy their meal because they wanted to order salmon. This the whole purpose of the
Yeah.
topic. Yeah, somebody else might have that feeling, but me, I'm going in, I'm going to order what I want to order because that's
Or
what I want to eat. And I'm not going to think
yeah.
about the salmon unless I actually wanted the salmon, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or here's where it does rely too. Somebody said, "Hey, Robbie, you ought to try this restaurant." That's suggestion.
Yeah.
I go to that restaurant, we go together, and then the waiter or waitress says, "This is what most people order because they really like this," and they're driving menu marketing. I get it, but at the same time, I have a palate, and I develop my palate. So this is the part where you were dovetailing off of on development of my palate, what I want and what I like. I don't have to feel bad about what I want and what I like and make that order, and I'm good with that. And then we can
Hmm.
look around, and if everybody wants to do a sampling, like we should do that a lot, order what you want, order what you like, and if everybody wants to sample off of it, put the plates in the middle and get the extra plates, everybody sample off, then everybody's pleased. But the choice then is, yeah, we can agree to do the sample or not, but be able to make a choice and not just get caught up in the lockstep of this pure outright suggestion
Yeah.
stuff, noise. Why do you do what you do? Why do you think what you think? What is your morality? What's your value system? What's your personal value proposition that you're promoting every day? What's your discipline code? You know what I mean? To get you to where you're supposed to be. I applaud you for being in that book club. That's ginormous.
Hmm.
That's ginormous. You know, I love books. I got books all over the place, and I just read my books every day. So I've been moved and I've encouraged people stuff to read all the books that begin with the J in the Bible. It'll
Yeah.
blow your mind.
And
The
I think one of
language,
the yeah. Go ahead. Finish that thought.
the language over all these thousands of years, and they're just all J books, right? Just all the J books in the scriptures will absolutely blow your mind, ground your thoughts, right, and get you thinking and thinking more progressively and seeing things more holistically and getting a bigger picture and building your inner being to say, man, I'm doing so much less than I'm actually
Hmm.
capable of accomplishing.
Yeah. Um, just to wrap up the thought about the salmon and ordering dinner, is like also people that ordered second, third, and fourth
Yeah.
would purposely not order that first order. So if I ordered salmon first, like the following three would not order the salmon just for a lack of originality. So even if they really wanted the salmon, they wouldn't do it just because they didn't want to think that they didn't have their own ideas and couldn't formulate their
That,
own.
that that
And
book sounds like
instead of
noise.
instead of saying
That's
no,
noise.
I love that too. I'm gonna relate to you on that as well. I'm gonna get the salmon also,
That
right?
author
No,
is
but
playing on both sides of the coin, man.
yeah, and it was just, and so yeah, so I find
Yeah,
myself
yeah.
combated a little bit in it. I'm like, oh well, does that really play out? Does it not? Maybe sometimes. Do I relate to that? No, probably not. So it's just a matter of like, what can I take,
But you
with
said
from the
something that was
book.
powerful. Hit that. Do I relate to that? Hit that piece.
Yeah, so I think we as people, as like cognitive, like critical thinkers, need to be able to take information in and say yes or no. Like just
Period.
because someone's like presenting it to you and says this is fact, this is like infallible truth, You're like, okay, well, okay, I see how you say that, but probably not, you know?
right?
Um, so it's just a matter of separating the idea from the ego of the individual. Is like, dude, I love you or whatever, but I wholeheartedly disagree with you, and here's why.
Here's why.
And at the end of the day, I don't think this is a hill that we're gonna die on. You know,
Yeah,
you might be right, and I might change my opinion later, or vice versa.
or
But
don't
like,
have to.
or don't have to. Yeah, exactly. So it's one of those things where, um, you know, you
George,
just have to be able to constructively talk through ideas, and I think we've lost our ability
say
to
that
do that.
right.
You see,
Say that one more time, dude. That's the whole thing right there.
yeah,
Constructively be able to talk through ideas and take a position. And we used to be,
and
we don't
separate it
have
from the
to
ego.
agree. We can
Yeah,
choose not to agree, and that's fine. It doesn't
but
disrupt relationships, or it shouldn't. It
yeah, it
shouldn't.
shouldn't.
Yeah, it shouldn't affect anything about us. It's just you. This is what you are about, and this is what I am about, and that's okay because in that tension, something greater is actually going to be birthed out of that. We've forgotten that part.
Yeah, so here's an example of what I'm driving at is like I bring up Kanye West, and Kanye's got a lot of off the wall ideas. He says a lot that doesn't really think things through, but he says a lot that I think is valuable. And you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater
Because he's a
because
genius.
you just throw the dirt away,
Yeah,
right? So, and he said one time was like people that are truthful and genuine will sometimes make you feel uncomfortable, and people that
yep,
are trying to lie to you will always try to please you,
yep.
always try to
Always,
just make you feel
always,
cozy. So
always.
you have to have that radar and that ability to sense that. And um, so our ability to constructively debate ideas without you know taking that individual and running them through the lawnmower, like, and
Well,
then
well,
just
well,
dismissing them as a whole
but you said
human.
something though too. You said throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Just because his brain deconstructs information different than your brain constructs information doesn't mean that he's a nutbag. It means he processes on a different level. And
Sometimes
because
you
he,
need people that are like that, that
you have
just
to
are
have, that's how everything came about. Listen,
pierce the
somebody's
veil,
looking
you
up
know?
into outer space. He watches something drop down and he comes up with a whole theory. And we
Yeah,
follow the theory. Somebody's looking up in outer space and they see things moving, they see planets and they start tracking this. And the theory's born out of this. Come on,
yeah,
man. Are we serious about this?
yeah.
This is crazy. Men, mind, money, marketing, manifestation. Those five things flow. If you
Mhm.
get a man who has a mind and his mind can influence and he gets money behind that and he starts to market that through means, power, influence, other people with money, it's going to manifest. So is he really a nutbag or is he thinking, constructing and deconstructing on a whole different plane and you're thinking, constructing, deconstructing on a whole different plane? But look at the brilliance
Yeah,
because you pulled something out of that. My point behind that is suggestions is stuff, but if you didn't have your thing built up in you, then everything that he said could seem like it's right. But because you have your thing and you've built your morale, you have your morality, your value systems, all your construct is built on you, how you process.
yeah.
Now you can listen, you're able to stand. You've done smart stuff, read for yourself, process for yourself, can stand alone if you
Mhm.
needed to. May not be your choice, but if you needed to, you could stand alone and survive. How many people can do that? We're in a herd mentality. They're
Yeah,
herding everything
yeah.
in the world on suggestions. That's the whole point. Who can stand alone and who can stand being alone to get things done in the world? Because suggestion says we all have to. No, we
Mhm.
all do not have to. I don't have to be with groups and crowds of people. I don't.
Yeah.
Never have.
There's this whole idea that's being pushed out. I guess another suggestion is about unity. And in some regard, like unity sounds great, but we have to have diversity of thought within that. Like
Within that unit, yes.
we have to be able to coexist with disagreement and be able to constructively move forward. Like,
Yes.
so there's like that balance. Like it's not
Tension.
one side of the coin or the other. It's like that fine, rigid edge of playing the line of
I don't know
Like,
if you have to play the line. I think you have to respect the players. If you
respect the
respect the players, so I respect 100% what you say. Your brain is crazy. You're crazy smart. You studied into the medical, and you're all about what to do with the body and the physical. Crazy. You have a crazy smart noodle. I dig it, right? And I'm saying the truth. And
it
so
just I don't know. Certain words get me. You said noodle, and I was like, I giggled. You know.
so so when you start speaking, I hear what you're saying, and then I'm like, wow, this for me manifests like this,
Yeah.
or it stimulates something, and then something new. I grab something new. I'm able to take from what you say and what I
Yeah.
hear you saying, and I can grab something. I'm like, wow, and then I start taking notes to create something new. And so that's the beauty of it all. And so here we are, two different ways of presenting ourselves, presenting our data points,
Hmm.
and together, this kind of exchange, it will possibly cause somebody else listening to get untethered about something, or to say, dang, I am valuable. My position does matter.
Yeah.
um I'm not just because I think differently. I'm the Kanye West, and you're the whoever George. That's who you are. It
Hmm.
doesn't make one better than the other. It makes the beauty of what we come together and what synergizes out of that beauty powerful,
Right.
because both pieces together makes something greater. And that's
Hmm.
what you just finished saying, the beauty of unity. But the unity is built and it's glued together by the diversity.
Hmm. And I don't know that the result is always better, and probably it is, but
Sure
I
it
think
is.
another key component of that is to have the freedom to use your own brain and have your
Yeah.
own thought and opinion, and not let that be regulated by just because so and so's ego can't handle it, or so and so emotionally fragile that you disagree with them on, like in Oreos versus Chips Ahoy, like soft or crunchy,
Right,
like
right.
it just like so many people are just at each other's throats about things that don't matter,
It don't
like
matter.
in the scope of things, but they don't have that moral compass to really tell them it doesn't matter. They don't have that connection towards source or God or whatever to tell them like, hey, no, people disagree, and then I'll go on to be wildly successful and happy, and go on. Like there's people that are a part of Fortune 500 companies that disagree all the time, and then they somehow
But
coexist with ideas and
it's,
are
it's
able
not,
to really.
but George, it's not sometimes, it's not. So if you get in the boardroom, you will get excused from the boardroom if you don't bring value. They're not,
Right.
listen, in a boardroom, I've been in boardrooms, thank God. They're not looking for yes butter, is what they call it. They're not looking for
Right.
yes butter. They're not looking for people that want to just agree and all like that. You can get fired. They're looking for innovators,
Yeah.
and they want to know the why behind what you're saying. And so some people don't have the cojones to stand up and tell why they feel what they feel. And in the world we live in today, our United States world, we live in, I told you, we live in that I feel like world. We live
Hmm.
in that I identify this world, which means, wait a minute, you starting to hold it, and I got you, and it's cool. Do your thing, do you, right, right. But why? Right? And what makes you feel and think the way that you do? Create your point, stand on your point, believe in your point. Everyone else coming together, solving these challenges because it's something solid that we believe in, not because of something we're being railroaded into believe universally because of the men, the mind, the money, the marketing to manifest, but because we have research, we have actual data, there's actual truths. We can't dismantle all truth, right? Because then we have absolutely nothing. But when we pull that stuff together and allow for things to exist or not exist, or something better to be born out of it, man, then that's when we can kill some of the noise. Because right now, the platform that looks like in America, anybody wants to make some noise, you got enough men who got a mind, who want to throw some money at you and market you a little bit. That's why, look, did you notice all this week? All the big jump and everybody doing podcasts, all the podcasts, and I love it But at the end of the day, it's just like all the podcast advertisement. And now everybody's going out there becoming an expert and telling other people how to make money off of being podcast experts. And you dial in and they tell you to buy this for so much. Great marketing. Men, mind, money, marketing, manifestation.
Hmm.
So we follow the noise. We follow the noise. And sometimes we got to go back into the lab where it's quiet. And
Yeah.
we've got to put some things together. We got to run some experiments and find out what we're all about. Otherwise, we're not about anything but following the noise,
Yeah.
following every suggestion, every wind of doctrine, everything that comes out. Now we got the space race, economic coup on the space race. Wow, we want to be land barons on other planets, and we're going to war over that.
Do you think that that will ever happen?
You think it's not already happening? Are you serious?
I don't know.
You don't. I mean, so here's so that's a good thing. So I am of the belief that we have already been on a part of several different planets, already doing things,
Hmm.
already having stations built, already creating things that have an energy and a force that if we did it in this planet, it would be so disruptive to different layers of our atmosphere that it would destroy it faster.
Hmm.
And so, in another spot and another planet inside of our galaxy, we can construct and get things done with less destruction, mass destruction coming to our own planet.
Hmm.
I'm mystified by how perfectly we see our quarter moons, our half moons, all this. I just blows my mind.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, how do we control? How's that control? And I started to thank God, and I wonder if in thanking God, some of the realization is that maybe we're actually able to manipulate some of that, not devoid of God's influence. Maybe we have a capacity to
Yeah.
implement, to manipulate some of that.
Yeah, it's all really interesting. I think because there's just so much money spent on it, and you're trying to figure out, okay, what's going on? Because we've been spending so much money on it for so long. I
Trillions,
mean,
trillions.
that's like at some point we have to make some sort of advancement or discovery or something that's gonna
But look at the
translate or make it move to like mainstream culture and
killer
media or
satellite,
whatever. Yeah.
killer satellites, killer weapons that have been produced off scale in terms of what we appear to have capacity to be able to do here on this planet side suddenly are appearing. And of course, we know we build a lot underground and then we bring it above ground when we want to, when we flex. But there's so many other things that's happening, and there's definitely a need for a place, as it were, because we're destroying our own planet. We just crippling our own planet.
Yeah,
And
and we hit on it last week, but I think the electric vehicles are rapidly advancing that destruction just
dude, what
because
you
of
should hit that. You should talk about that more, George.
like the earth needs its rare minerals and we're sitting there stripping it of its own. Like there's natural mechanisms to deal with the CO2 and it's called plants. It's called photosynthesis. It's called cellular respiration for plants.
Yeah,
We breathe out oxygen, they breathe in CO2, you
you
know.
too.
In some regards, the earth is greener than it ever has in certain areas. So it's like, well, there's an intelligence that offers like balance in nature, and nature does respond to us and we respond to nature. So I think there's more intelligence there than we give the earth credit for. um in some regard, I think the earth is alive in the sense that
Totally
there's
alive.
it's intelligent.
Yeah,
There's a like we're I think we sometimes think that we are the
our
only
ego.
yeah, it's an ego thing. It's like we are it, and the earth is doomed to fail and we have to save it. I don't think that's necessarily totally true. I think the earth has coping mechanisms that can save itself in some
which which
regards.
which would which would include the eradication of a
As
disease thing like ourselves
yeah.
in order for it to repair itself.
And instead of falling in line with the natural forces of nature, we kind of like say, no, the natural forces of nature are wrong, so we're gonna like change them. And then you
Man,
see all this weather modification, people trying to cover up the sun. And
yep.
if you're listening and you have no idea what we're talking about, like Bill Gates is wholeheartedly destroying the planet, in my opinion. And I'm no
100%.
expert.
Yeah.
But just from my like own
Personal research.
common sense, personal, like what I hear, he owns the most farmland, like
Yep.
in America. He's actively working with, I believe it's HARP, to
Harp
block
technology.
out the sun. And it's like, well, if there
And
is this,
buildings, and also don't leave out the synthetic foods that are being
yeah, and he wants
manufactured.
us to eat beetles and bugs, and it's just, I don't know, it's crazy.
But lettuce that no longer wilts, that
Oh
people
yeah, yeah.
serve
Like,
nowadays, yeah, and other greens that no longer rot out, that people are ingesting nowadays. But
yeah.
go ahead.
And if the greens never rot and they never break down, how does the body break it down for nutrients? Like, so
Exactly.
that's the whole issue with the GMO, the glyphosate really messes people up, and Roundup is taking it in the shorts in terms of lawsuits and everything. Because, I mean, Roundup, there's a key ingredient for people that don't know. It's called glyphosate. It's a pesticide that's added to Roundup. You use it to kill weeds that are in the crack of the concrete, which is great. That's a great application of it. But it's in the water. It's made its way into public water supply. It's made its way into the factory farming and the manufacturing of crops and goods. And yes, when you spray it in like the final harvest of the wheat, oats, and grains are the most heavily glyphosated, and corn is the most heavily sprayed crops. So when you look at that, corn is in everything. Wheat is in everything.
Everything.
And you wonder why so many people have this intolerance that they're like, oh, well, now I can't eat wheat anymore. 30 years ago, you never had that because glyphosate wasn't widely used like it is. So, and when you use that, it changes the proportion of gluten, the protein that everyone's gluten intolerant to,
Right.
in the actual grain. So it's not that, people have always been intolerant and then are just discovering it. It's that people are intolerant to what glyphosate is doing to the wheat and the grain. So it's just
We're,
our desire to strive for like living forever
yeah.
and increasing shelf life is actually killing us.
It's killing us. And
Yeah.
again, that all comes with, again, that's the title of this whole message, man. You guys probably that are listening probably got a billion new ideas, or ideas you've already had that you've been sorting around, and you probably didn't want to sound like you were crazy and you didn't have the proper audience. That's Savage Will, man. Everything's not crazy. Some things that you're being tasked to do, figure out, map out is for a reason. Maybe it's going to bring some level of balance. So don't discount who you are and the process you're going through to make yourself better. So suggestions is stuff. That's what we were talking about today. I want to close out by saying stuff is powerful. Stuff is powerful, but when you got an economic coup of currency, an economic coup of war, an economic coup of religion, an economic coup of education, economic coup of knowledge about alien technology, an economic coup about space, an economic coup about land ownership, an economic coup on dis-ease or disease, mucus on the brain, mucus in the membrane, social economic coup on your gender and your biology, because men with their minds and their money and their marketing are manifesting noise for us to follow after, to cower under, to hide from. Man, until we look at the suggestions and see where they're coming from and the impact that it's having on our lives, and decide to educate ourselves outside of the hurting process, get away, turn the boob tube off, get away, start reading from some smart people, start putting down your value propositions for yourself, start mind mapping and put a discipline code to your mind map, and then determine what you're going to do. Hey, we're going to keep coming back to goals and setting goals and all that kind of stuff, so you can get yourself out of this mind trap. The greatest mind hack, George, you said the best way, the greatest mind hack on the planet. We're living it right now in suggestions. By
Yeah, it's a big
suggestion.
psyop.
It's stuff, man. George, wrap us
Yeah.
up, man. Give us those final thoughts, George.
Another great episode. I think we had a lot of great points. We could definitely keep digging into this, and we probably will in further episodes. But we've reached our time limit for today. So, Robbie, another great episode. Really enjoy this with you.
Love
If you're
it.
listening to it live or the after recording, definitely give us a like, shout us out, subscribe, tell us what you want to hear and what you liked. And then we'll be back next Saturday at 11:11 on the East Coast. Robbie, great
George, you rock,
episode.
man.
Good to see you.
Thank you, bro. Good to see you.